In a working class home, typically, people find that their parent, when they think back of how they were raised, they'll say, well, my mother was Mrs. This is my house, and sort of the sense that any kind of deviation from the norm, any kind of deviation from what was set down by the fiat by the parents would just not be tolerated. They're almost like military plebes. These kids are spoken to and dealt with, and there's not much chance for them to speak out about their own raising. Often in a middle class home, people will say, Janie, would you like to go to grandma's? Would you like to go to the park? You know, in the working class home, we're going to grandma's. And so when you talk to kids like a factory worker, when you give them very little chance to express themselves, when you just tell them what's what, and there's consequence if you don't, you are, and according to some sociologists, you are setting the agenda for their lives. I mean, you're making good little factory workers. You know, obedience over, let's say, creativity. There was a study done by Temple University professor Annette Leroux who followed middle-class kids and working-class kids to try to get a sense of what their backgrounds were like and how they were different. Middle-class kids were often solicited for their opinions about things. As I said, you want to go to grandma's or not. They were asked, they were chauffeured around from event to event, from one thing to the next, and they sort of developed a sense that, well, there must be something special about me. I'm entitled. Working class kids don't have that. Nobody's wondering whether little Janie is self-actualizing over there in the corner. You know, you just shut up. You know, children should be seen and not heard. That kind of thing. Studies show that sort of treatment will limit a child. You mentioned language. It's true that in a working class home, there's a sort of sense that, and this is Patrick Finn from the University of Buffalo came up with this notion. There's a sense that in a working class home, we sort of see the world the same way. You know, there are no grays. It's pretty black and white. When you live in a situation where things are pretty much accepted as the norm, and there's no deviation from thought, you know, there's not as much of a breadth of vocabulary. Whereas in a middle-class home, if the parents are out there exposing the kids to different ideas, if they're talking about books, if they're talking about different things beyond just the very basics of survival, which working class people have to be preoccupied with, then the kids are found to be more adaptable to the wider world and have a greater breadth of language. There are 3 times as many words spoken in a middle class home as there are in a working class home, some social scientists have found. And you also develop a sense that in a working class home, being articulate, being hyper-articulate is almost effeminate, and so it doesn't jibe with the macho kind of you know, be a man or be a tough woman kind of situation that you see, and there are people who have said that they run into trouble the second they go to college and start to emulate the way their professors speak. Richard Rodriguez, the writer who I interviewed for this book, said it sears the soul to finally decide to speak more like your teacher than like your father. He said, I'm talking about nothing less than the grammar of the heart. And there is a lot of that as you look back and you think about it. I mean, working class parents hold out their lives as object lessons in what to avoid. Don't be like me. Don't do it this way. Middle class parents hold out their lives as ways to be. You know, I'm the role model, and so you can just imagine the differences that go on in these different homes. But because we don't talk about class, people don't delve into these root causes of who we are.
This excerpt is brought to you by the Massachusetts School of Law, the leader of reform in legal education and a leader in multimedia education for the public. To view the full interview and for a full listing of MSL's programs, log on to mslaw.edu.